Maya Rodriguez stared at her reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror of her tiny apartment. The blazer looked perfect now, thanks to the alterations she had splurged on 3 days ago. Every stitch was in place, every wrinkle smoothed out. She had practiced this moment so many times that her roommate had started rolling her eyes whenever Maya began her practice interview routine. "You look professional," she whispered to herself, adjusting the collar one more time. "You belong in that office." The words felt strange in her mouth. Growing up in a family where her father worked double shifts at the factory and her mother cleaned houses to make ends meet, Maya had never imagined herself applying for a position at one of the city's most prestigious tech companies. But here she was, 24 years old with a computer science degree she had earned through scholarships, student loans, and countless nights of studying while working part-time jobs. She walked over to her desk and picked up the manila folder that contained her future. Inside were copies of her resume, printed on the best paper she could afford, her portfolio showcasing the mobile apps she had created during college, and letters of recommendation from professors who believed in her potential. Each page represented hours of work, late nights, and dreams that felt too big for someone like her. Maya glanced at her phone. 7:30 in the morning. The interview was scheduled for 9 o'clock at Sterling Tech, and according to her calculations, the 12-mile bike ride would take exactly 90 minutes if she maintained a steady pace and hit the traffic lights right. She had practiced this route twice over the weekend, timing herself and noting every potential obstacle. Her car had broken down on Monday morning with a grinding noise that sounded expensive. The mechanic had quoted her $800 for repairs, money she simply did not have. Rent was due in 5 days, and after paying for groceries and the blazer alterations, her checking account showed a balance that made her stomach knot with anxiety. "This interview has to go well," she said aloud, securing the manila folder in her backpack with extra care. She had wrapped it in a plastic bag just in case of unexpected weather. It has to. Maya had discovered Sterling Tech during her final semester of college. The company specialized in sustainable technology solutions, creating apps and systems that helped businesses reduce their environmental impact. It was exactly the kind of work she wanted to do, combining her love for coding with her passion for making the world a better place. When she saw they were hiring junior developers, she had spent 3 weeks perfecting her application. She strapped on her helmet and wheeled her bicycle out of the apartment building. The bike was nothing fancy, a second-hand mountain bike she had bought from a graduating senior for $200. It had served her well throughout college, carrying her to classes, work, and study groups. Today, it would carry her to the most important meeting of her life. The morning air was crisp and clean, with just a hint of the summer heat that would arrive later in the day. Maya took a deep breath and began pedaling. The first few miles took her through her neighborhood, past the corner grocery store where she bought her weekly supplies, past the laundromat where she spent Sunday mornings, past the small park where she sometimes sat to work on coding projects when her apartment felt too cramped. As she rode, Maya mentally rehearsed her answers to potential interview questions. "Tell us about yourself." She would mention her academic achievements, her internship at the local nonprofit, where she had helped them design a website, and her genuine enthusiasm for sustainable technology. "What are your strengths?" "Attention to detail, problem-solving abilities, and a willingness to learn new technologies quickly." The traffic grew heavier as she approached downtown. Maya had to navigate carefully between parked cars and moving vehicles, staying alert for opening doors and distracted drivers. She had learned to be defensive while cycling in the city, never assuming that motorists saw her even when she wore bright colors and had lights on her bike. At a red light, she found herself next to a businessman in an expensive sedan. He was talking loudly on his phone about quarterly projections and market strategies. Maya caught fragments of his conversation and wondered if she would ever feel comfortable using that kind of business language. The thought made her nervous, but she reminded herself that everyone started somewhere. The miles passed steadily. Maya maintained her pace, checking her watch periodically to ensure she stayed on schedule. She passed coffee shops where people in suits grabbed their morning caffeine, office buildings where early arrivals were already at their desks, and construction sites where workers were setting up for the day ahead. As she got closer to the business district, the buildings grew taller and more impressive. Sterling Tech occupied several floors of a gleaming glass tower that reflected the morning sun. Maya had looked up photos of the building online, but seeing it in person made her stomach flutter with excitement and nerves. She was making good time, actually running a few minutes ahead of schedule. The weather was perfect for cycling, with a gentle breeze that kept her cool without being strong enough to slow her down. Maya allowed herself to feel optimistic. Everything was going according to plan. That confidence lasted until she was just 2 miles from Sterling Tech. Maya noticed the clouds gathering overhead, dark and heavy with the promise of rain. She checked her weather app and frowned. The forecast had called for clear skies all morning, but weather could be unpredictable. "Come on," she murmured, pedaling a little faster. "Just hold off for another 20 minutes." But nature had other plans. The first drop started falling when Maya was just 8 blocks from her destination. Within minutes, what had begun as a light sprinkle turned into a steady downpour. Maya pulled over under a bus stop shelter, joining several other people who were waiting for the rain to pass. She looked at her watch and felt panic rising in her chest. She could not afford to be late. This interview represented months of hope and preparation. She thought about her parents, who had sacrificed so much to help her get through college. She thought about her younger brother, who looked up to her as proof that their family could achieve bigger things. She thought about the pile of rejection letters she had received from other companies, and how this felt like her last real chance. Maya made a decision. She pulled the hood of her light jacket over her helmet, double-checked that her backpack was securely closed, and stepped back into the rain. The other people at the bus stop looked at her as if she was crazy, but Maya did not care. She had come too far to let a little water stop her now. As she pedaled through the increasingly heavy rain, Maya focused on protecting the manila folder in her backpack. Her blazer was getting soaked and she could feel water seeping through her shoes. But none of that mattered as much as arriving at Sterling Tech on time with her application materials intact. She leaned forward, creating a shield with her body to protect her backpack from the worst of the downpour. The glass tower of Sterling Tech appeared through the rain like a beacon. Maya was almost there. Almost at the moment that would change everything. She just had to make it a few more blocks without disaster striking. Little did she know that disaster was about to turn into the best thing that had ever happened to her. Alexander Sterling sat in the back seat of his black Tesla, scrolling through the quarterly reports on his tablet. The numbers were good, better than expected actually, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing from his life. At 32, he had built Sterling Tech from a small startup in his garage into one of the city's most successful technology companies. He had everything he had worked for, yet most mornings he woke up feeling empty. "Sir, we'll arrive at the office in 12 minutes, his driver, Robert, announced from the front seat. Robert had been with the company for 3 years and knew Alexander's schedule better than Alexander did himself. "Thank you, Robert," Alexander replied, not looking up from his tablet. The board meeting was scheduled for 9:15, and he needed to review the presentation one more time. As CEO, he prided himself on being prepared for everything, knowing every detail of his company's operations. His assistant, Jennifer, sat beside him with her own tablet, rapidly typing notes about the day's schedule. After the board meeting, you have lunch with the Peterson Group at noon, then the interview panel for the junior developer position at 2:30, and the sustainability committee meeting at 4. Alexander nodded absently. The interview panel was something he usually left to his HR department, but this particular position was for the Sustainable Technology Division, a project close to his heart. Sterling Tech had started as a way to make money, but over the years, Alexander had realized that success meant nothing if it didn't contribute to making the world better. He thought about his parents, who had raised him to believe that wealth came with responsibility. His father had been a teacher, his mother a nurse. They had worked hard their entire lives to give him opportunities, and they had instilled in him the value of helping others. Sometimes Alexander wondered if they would be proud of the man he had become, or if they would see him as just another rich businessman who had lost touch with regular people. The rain started just as they entered the downtown area. At first it was just a few drops on the windshield, but within minutes it had turned into a heavy downpour. Alexander watched the city transform through the rain-streaked windows, people hurrying for shelter, umbrellas popping open like flowers blooming in fast motion. "Looks like it's going to be a wet morning," Jennifer commented, looking up from her tablet. Alexander was about to agree when Robert suddenly pressed the brakes, causing them all to lurch forward slightly. "Sorry about that." "Sir," Robert said, his eyes focused on something ahead. There's a cyclist up there struggling with the rain. Alexander leaned forward to see what Robert was talking about. Through the heavy rain, he could make out a figure on a bicycle pedaling slowly through the downpour. The person was wearing a light jacket with the hood pulled up, but it was clearly not designed for this kind of weather. What caught Alexander's attention, however, was not the cyclist's struggle with the rain, but something else entirely. The young woman on the bike was clutching something against her chest with one arm while trying to steer with the other. As Alexander watched, she wobbled slightly, clearly having difficulty maintaining her balance. But instead of pulling over to wait out the storm, she continued forward with a determination that was impossible to ignore. "She's protecting something," Alexander said quietly, more to himself than to anyone else. "Sir?" Jennifer looked up from her tablet. "The cyclist. Look at how she's holding something against her body. Whatever it is, it's more important to her than staying dry." As their car slowly followed behind the cyclist, Alexander found himself completely absorbed by the scene unfolding in front of him. The young woman's dedication was remarkable. Every few seconds, she would adjust her position to better shield whatever she was carrying, even though it made her cycling more difficult and dangerous. "Sir, should I pass her?" Robert asked. "We could take the next street over." Alexander was about to say yes when he saw the cyclist hit a large puddle. The bike wobbled dangerously, and for a moment it looked like she might fall. But somehow she regained her balance and kept going, still protecting whatever was in her arms. "Pull over," Alexander said suddenly. "Sir?" Jennifer looked at him in confusion. "Pull over to the curb. I want to help her." "But sir, you'll be late for the board meeting," Jennifer protested, checking her watch. "And you're wearing your best suit." Alexander was already reaching for the large umbrella he kept in the car for situations exactly like this. "Some things are more important than staying on schedule, Jennifer." "But sir, the board can wait 5 minutes," Alexander said firmly, opening the car door. "This young woman obviously has somewhere important to be, and she's willing to risk her safety to get there. The least I can do is help her stay dry." As Alexander stepped out into the rain, he immediately understood why the cyclist was struggling so much. The downpour was heavier than it had looked from inside the car, and the wind was whipping the rain in all directions. He opened his umbrella and began jogging toward the bicycle, his expensive dress shoes splashing through puddles. The young woman didn't notice him at first. She was completely focused on the road ahead and protecting whatever she was carrying. Alexander had to call out to get her attention. "Excuse me," he shouted over the sound of the rain. "Let me help you." The cyclist turned her head, and Alexander got his first clear look at her face. She was young, probably in her mid-20s, with determined eyes and rain-soaked hair sticking to her cheeks. But what struck him most was the expression on her face. Despite being drenched and clearly struggling, she had a look of fierce concentration and resolve that reminded him of himself when he was first starting his company. "Your documents look important," Alexander said, jogging alongside her bicycle and holding the umbrella over both of them. "You shouldn't let them get wet." The young woman looked surprised that a stranger would stop to help her, especially a stranger in an expensive suit. "Thank you," she said, slightly breathless from pedaling. "But you don't have to." "It's no trouble," Alexander interrupted, matching her pace easily despite his dress shoes. "Where are you headed?" "There's a coffee shop just ahead where you could dry off and wait out the storm." For a moment, the young woman looked like she might refuse his help. Alexander could see the independence in her eyes, the same stubborn pride he recognized in himself. But then she glanced down at whatever she was protecting, and he saw her resolve waver. "I have an interview," she said finally. "It's really important." "Then we definitely need to make sure you arrive looking your best," Alexander said with a warm smile. "The coffee shop has a good heating system, and you'll have time to dry off before your appointment." As they reached the coffee shop, Alexander held the door open for her while she carefully maneuvered her bicycle inside. The warmth hit them immediately, and he could see the relief on the young woman's face as she finally relaxed her protective grip on whatever she had been carrying. It was then that Alexander saw what she had been protecting so carefully. A manila folder, slightly damp around the edges but otherwise intact. Inside, he could see the corner of what looked like a resume and some kind of portfolio. This young woman had risked her safety in a rainstorm to protect her job application materials. In that moment, Alexander knew he was looking at someone special. Someone who understood the value of perseverance and wasn't afraid of hard work. someone who would rather push through adversity than give up on her dreams. He had no idea that in just a few hours, he would discover that her interview was at his own company. The warmth of the coffee shop wrapped around Maya like a gentle hug after the cold rain outside. She stood near the entrance, water dripping from her jacket onto the wooden floor, clutching her precious manila folder against her chest. The smell of fresh coffee and baked goods filled the air, and soft jazz music played in the background, creating a cozy atmosphere that felt like a safe haven from the storm. "Here, let me get you some napkins," Alexander said, walking over to the counter. Maya watched him move with quiet confidence, the kind that came from someone who was used to taking charge of situations. His suit was expensive, she could tell, but he didn't seem to care that it was getting wet from helping her. The coffee shop was small and charming, with mismatched furniture that somehow worked perfectly together. A few other customers sat at scattered tables, most of them looking like they had also taken shelter from the unexpected rain. The barista, a young man with kind eyes, smiled sympathetically at Maya's soaked appearance. "Rough morning?" he asked as Alexander approached the counter. "You could say that," Alexander replied with a small laugh. "Could we get some extra napkins and maybe 2 coffees?" "Whatever she'd like," he added, gesturing toward Maya. Maya felt a flutter of panic. She had exactly $12 in her wallet, money she needed for lunch after her interview. But before she could protest, Alexander was already ordering. "I can't let you buy me coffee," Maya said quickly, walking over to join them. "You've already done so much by helping me with the umbrella." Alexander turned to look at her, and Maya noticed his eyes for the first time. They were warm and genuine, without the calculating look she often saw in successful business people. "It's just coffee," he said gently. "Besides, you look like you could use something warm after that adventure in the rain." The barista waited patiently while Maya wrestled with her pride. She had been taking care of herself for so long that accepting help from strangers felt uncomfortable. But something about this man's sincere expression made her defenses lower slightly. "Okay," she said finally, "but just coffee. Nothing fancy." "2 regular coffees coming up," the barista said with a smile. Alexander guided Maya to a small table near the window where they could watch the rain continue to fall outside. Maya carefully placed her manila folder on the table and began the delicate process of checking its contents. She unwrapped the plastic bag she had used to protect it, her hands trembling slightly from cold and nerves. "Important documents?" Alexander asked, settling into the chair across from her. Maya nodded, carefully opening the folder to inspect the damage. Her resume looked perfect, thank goodness. The portfolio pages were completely dry, and the letters of recommendation were intact. She let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. "Job interview?" Alexander guessed, watching her methodical inspection. "The most important interview of my life," Maya admitted, then immediately wondered why she was sharing personal information with a complete stranger. Something about his presence made her want to open up, which was unusual for her. The barista brought their coffees, and Maya wrapped her hands around the warm mug gratefully. The heat seeped through her fingers, slowly bringing feeling back to her hands. "What kind of job?" Alexander asked, taking a sip of his coffee. He seemed genuinely interested, not just making polite conversation. Maya hesitated. Most people didn't understand her passion for technology, especially when they looked at her and saw a young woman who rode a bicycle to interviews instead of driving a car. But something about this stranger made her want to share her dreams. "It's for a junior developer position at a tech company," she said. "They focus on sustainable technology solutions, creating apps and systems that help businesses reduce their environmental impact. It's exactly the kind of work I've always wanted to do." Alexander's expression grew more interested. "That sounds fascinating. What drew you to sustainable technology?" Maya's face lit up as she began to talk about her passion. "I grew up seeing how technology could either help or hurt communities. My neighborhood didn't have access to the same resources as wealthier areas, and I saw how the right technology could bridge those gaps. But I also saw how wasteful some tech practices could be. I want to be part of the solution, you know? I want to create things that make the world better, not just make rich people richer." Alexander listened intently, occasionally asking thoughtful questions that showed he understood what she was talking about. Maya found herself relaxing for the first time all morning, the warmth of the coffee and the genuine interest of her companion easing her pre-interview nerves. "You seem really passionate about it," Alexander observed. The company would be lucky to have someone with your enthusiasm. Maya felt herself blushing slightly. I hope they see it that way. I know I don't have as much experience as other candidates probably do, but I'm willing to work harder than anyone else. I've been preparing for this interview for weeks. What company is it? Alexander asked casually, taking another sip of his coffee. Sterling Tech, Maya said, and she noticed something flicker across Alexander's face so quickly she almost missed it. Do you know them? Alexander paused for just a moment, and Maya wondered if she had imagined the strange expression. I've heard of them, he said carefully. They have a good reputation in the industry. Really? Maya leaned forward eagerly. What have you heard? I've done so much research, but it's always helpful to get outside perspectives. Alexander seemed to choose his words carefully. From what I understand, they really value people who are genuine and hardworking. They care more about character than just credentials on paper. Maya felt a surge of hope. That's what I'm counting on. I know my resume isn't as impressive as some people's, but I really believe in what they're doing. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the rain begin to lighten outside. Maya glanced at her watch and felt a jolt of anxiety. She still had 45 minutes before her interview, which was perfect timing, but she didn't want to be late. I should probably start heading over soon, she said reluctantly. The conversation had been so pleasant that she almost didn't want it to end. Of course, Alexander said, standing up as she began to pack her documents back into the folder. I hope your interview goes well. I have a feeling it will. Thank you, Maya said, meaning it more than she could express. For the umbrella, for the coffee, for listening. You didn't have to do any of that. Alexander smiled, and Maya noticed how it transformed his entire face. Sometimes the best things in life happen when we take a moment to help each other out. As they walked toward the door, Maya realized she didn't even know his name. I'm Maya, by the way. Maya Rodriguez. It's nice to meet you, Maya. I'm Alex, he said, shaking her hand. His grip was firm and warm, and Maya felt a strange little spark at the contact. Well, Alex, thank you again for everything. I hope you have a good rest of your day. You too, Maya. And remember what I said about Sterling Tech valuing character. Just be yourself in there, and I'm sure they'll see what I see. Maya felt herself blushing again. What do you see? Alexander's smile was gentle and encouraging. Someone special. Someone who rides her bike through a rainstorm to chase her dreams. That's the kind of person any smart company would want on their team. As Maya walked back out into the now lighter rain, she felt like she was floating. The stranger's kindness had been unexpected and genuine, exactly what she needed to calm her nerves before the biggest interview of her life. She had no idea that in less than an hour, she would see Alex again, and discover that he was much more than just a kind stranger who had shared her coffee and her dreams. Maya stood outside the gleaming glass tower that housed Sterling Tech, taking deep breaths to calm her nerves. The rain had finally stopped and weak sunlight was beginning to break through the clouds. Her blazer had dried during the coffee shop visit, and thanks to Alex's kindness, her interview materials were in perfect condition. She felt more confident than she had all morning. The lobby of Sterling Tech was even more impressive than she had imagined. High ceilings, modern art on the walls, and a reception desk that looked like it belonged in a luxury hotel. Maya approached the receptionist, a professional woman with a warm smile. I'm Maya Rodriguez. I have an interview at 9 o'clock for the junior developer position. Of course, Ms. Rodriguez, please have a seat. And someone from HR will be with you shortly. Maya sat in one of the comfortable chairs and looked around at the other people in the lobby. Some were clearly employees walking with purpose and wearing ID badges. Others looked like visitors or potential clients. Everyone seemed to belong here except her. She reminded herself of Alex's encouraging words and straightened her shoulders. Maya Rodriguez, a woman in her 40s, approached with a clipboard and a friendly expression. I'm Patricia Chen, the HR director. Ready for your big day? Absolutely, Maya replied, standing up and shaking Patricia's hand with what she hoped was the right amount of confidence. Patricia led her to the elevator, chatting pleasantly about the building and the company culture as they rode up to the 15th floor. We're really excited to meet you. Your application stood out among all the candidates we reviewed. Maya felt a flutter of hope in her chest. Maybe she really did have a chance. The interview room was bright and welcoming, with large windows overlooking the city. 3 people sat around a conference table: Patricia, a technical lead named David, and the head of the Sustainable Technology Division, Lisa. Maya settled into her chair and placed her portfolio on the table with steady hands. The questions started easy. They asked about her background, her education, and her interest in the company. Maya found herself relaxing as she talked about her passion for technology that could make a positive impact. The story of why she chose computer science, her volunteer work teaching coding to kids in her neighborhood, and her vision for how technology could solve environmental problems. "Tell us about a challenging project you've worked on," David asked, leaning forward with interest. Maya launched into the story of the mobile app she had created for the local food bank, which helped them track donations and connect with volunteers more efficiently. She had worked on it for 6 months, learning new programming languages and dealing with countless bugs and setbacks. But seeing how it helped the food bank serve more families had made every frustrating night worth it. "That's exactly the kind of innovative thinking we value here," Lisa said with an approving nod. "Can you walk us through your technical process?" For the next 30 minutes, Maya discussed code architecture, user interface design, and data management strategies. She could see in their faces that she was giving the right answers, demonstrating both technical knowledge and practical problem-solving skills. "Your portfolio is impressive," Patricia said, flipping through the printed pages. "These projects show real creativity and understanding of user needs." Maya felt a warm glow of satisfaction. All those late nights and weekend coding sessions were finally paying off. The interview was going better than she had dared to hope. "We have one more step in our process," Patricia said, closing the portfolio. "There's someone we'd like you to meet. He likes to personally connect with candidates for key positions in our sustainable technology division." Maya nodded, though she felt a new wave of nervousness. Meeting with a senior executive was both exciting and terrifying. She gathered her materials and followed Patricia out of the conference room. They walked down a corridor lined with awards and photos of company milestones. Maya noticed pictures of Sterling Tech's involvement in various environmental initiatives, their partnerships with local schools, and their employees volunteering at community events. This was exactly the kind of company she wanted to work for. Patricia stopped in front of an office with large glass windows and a nameplate on the door. Maya couldn't read it from her angle, but she could see someone moving around inside. "He's just finishing up a phone call," Patricia said quietly. "This shouldn't take long. He mainly wants to get a sense of who you are as a person." Maya took another deep breath. She had made it this far. Whatever happened next, she was proud of how well the interview had gone. Patricia knocked on the door and opened it slightly. "Mr. Sterling? Maya Rodriguez is here." Maya's world seemed to tilt sideways. "Mr. Sterling? As in Alexander Sterling? As in the CEO of the entire company?" She felt her heart start racing as Patricia gestured for her to enter the office. The man behind the desk was still on the phone, turned away from the door as he finished his conversation. Maya could only see his profile, but something about his posture seemed familiar. Patricia motioned for her to sit in one of the chairs facing the desk. "Thank you for your patience, Robert. We'll discuss the new protocols at tomorrow's meeting," the man was saying into his phone. "Yes, I know I was late to the board meeting this morning, but sometimes priorities shift." Maya felt a strange recognition tickling at the back of her mind. The voice sounded familiar, but that was impossible. She had never met anyone who worked at Sterling Tech before today. The man hung up the phone and began to turn around in his chair. "Sorry about that. Patricia tells me you had an excellent interview, and I wanted to personally welcome you to—" His words trailed off as his eyes met Maya's. For a moment, neither of them moved or spoke. Maya felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. It was Alex, the kind stranger who had helped her in the rain, who had bought her coffee and listened to her talk about her dreams, who had encouraged her and told her she was someone special. Except he wasn't just Alex, he was Alexander Sterling, the CEO of Sterling Tech, one of the most successful businessmen in the city. "Maya," he said softly, and she could see the same shock in his eyes that she felt in her chest. Patricia looked between them with confusion. "Do you two know each other?" Maya opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her mind was reeling, trying to process what was happening. The man who had rescued her from the rain, who had seemed so genuine and down to earth, was actually the CEO of the company where she was interviewing. Had he known who she was the whole time? Had he been playing some kind of game with her? We met this morning," Alexander said slowly, never taking his eyes off Maya's face. "I helped her during the rainstorm." "What a coincidence," Patricia said with a smile. clearly not understanding the magnitude of the situation. Small world, isn't it? Maya finally found her voice, though it came out shakier than she would have liked. "You're Alexander Sterling, the CEO." "I am," he confirmed, and she could see something that looked like apology in his eyes. "Though I was just Alex when we had coffee." The room fell silent except for the sound of Maya's heart pounding in her ears. She didn't know whether to feel embarrassed, confused, or betrayed. Had the morning's kindness been real, or had it all been some elaborate test? Did he know she was coming to his company for an interview when he helped her? Patricia sensed the tension in the room and cleared her throat diplomatically. "Perhaps I should give you two a moment to reconnect?" Maya stood up abruptly, her professional composure finally cracking. "I should go. This changes everything." "Maya, wait," Alexander said, rising from his chair. "Please, let me explain." But Maya was already walking toward the door, her mind spinning with questions and confusion. The perfect interview had just turned into the most awkward situation of her life, and she had no idea what it meant for her future. Maya sat on the bench outside Sterling Tech, staring at her phone screen without really seeing it. Her hands were still shaking from the shock of discovering that Alex was actually Alexander Sterling, the CEO of the company she had just interviewed with. The morning had started with such hope, and now everything felt complicated and confusing. Should she have stayed and listened to his explanation? Was his kindness in the coffee shop genuine, or had he known who she was all along? Maya replayed every moment of their conversation, looking for signs that he had been playing some kind of game with her. Her phone buzzed with a text from her roommate asking how the interview went. Maya stared at the message, not sure how to answer. "How do you explain that you accidentally had coffee with the CEO of the company you were interviewing with?" 20 minutes later, Patricia Chen emerged from the building and spotted Maya on the bench. She walked over with a concerned expression. "Maya, are you okay? Mr. Sterling asked me to find you." Maya looked up, feeling embarrassed about her dramatic exit. "I'm sorry. That was unprofessional of me to leave like that." Patricia sat down beside her on the bench. "Can I ask what happened in there? Mr. Sterling seemed quite upset after you left." "He immediately called an emergency meeting with the interview panel." "He did?" Maya was surprised. "What kind of meeting?" "He removed himself from your hiring decision completely," Patricia explained. "He said there was a potential conflict of interest and that the technical team should make the decision based solely on your qualifications." Maya felt some of her anxiety ease. If Alexander had removed himself from the process, then whatever happened that morning wouldn't influence whether she got the job. It would be decided purely on her merit. "The interview panel was very impressed with you," Patricia continued. "They want to make you an offer." Maya's heart leaped. "Really, even after everything that just happened?" "Your qualifications speak for themselves," Patricia said with a smile. "David and Lisa both said you were exactly what they were looking for. Your technical skills are solid, and your passion for sustainable technology really impressed them." For the first time that day, Maya felt tears of relief in her eyes. She had gotten the job. All her hard work, all those late nights studying and coding had finally paid off. "There's just one thing," Patricia added gently. "Mr. Sterling wanted me to give you this." She handed Maya a sealed envelope with her name written on it in neat handwriting. Maya opened it with trembling fingers and found a handwritten note. "Maya, I'm sorry for the confusion this morning. I had no idea you were interviewing at my company when I helped you in the rain. I removed myself from your hiring decision because I wanted you to succeed or fail based on your own abilities, not because of our chance meeting. Your passion and determination impressed me long before I knew you were coming to Sterling Tech. I hope you'll consider taking the position. The company needs people like you." Alexander. Maya read the note twice, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. His kindness that morning had been real. He hadn't been playing games or testing her. It really had been just a chance encounter between two strangers, one helping the other during a storm. 3 months later, Maya was settling into her new life as a junior developer at Sterling Tech, better than she had ever imagined. Her first project had been developing an app that helped local businesses track and reduce their energy consumption. The app was now being used by over 200 small businesses in the city, and Maya received regular emails from business owners thanking her for helping them save money while protecting the environment. She had also proposed several initiatives that had been enthusiastically accepted by the company. The bike-friendly parking area was her idea, complete with covered spaces and maintenance stations. Maya still rode her bicycle to work every day, but now she wasn't the only one. Several other employees had started biking to work, creating a small community of environmentally conscious commuters. Alexander had kept his distance professionally, but Maya often saw him around the office. He always greeted her politely and asked about her projects, but their conversations remained strictly professional. Maya found herself missing the easy conversation they had shared in the coffee shop, but she understood that workplace relationships were complicated. One evening, as Maya was locking up her bicycle in the new bike parking area, she heard footsteps behind her. "Working late again?" Alexander's voice made her turn around. "Just finishing up some code for the energy tracking app," Maya replied, straightening up from her bike lock. "The new version should be ready for testing next week." "I've been hearing great things about that project," Alexander said, walking closer. "The preliminary reports show it's already helping businesses reduce their energy costs by an average of 15%. Maya felt a warm glow of pride. "It's exactly the kind of work I hoped to be doing when I applied here." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, both of them remembering the rainy morning that had brought them together. "I've been meaning to ask you something," Alexander said, and Maya noticed he seemed a little nervous. "There's a city council meeting next week about expanding the bike lane network downtown. I thought you might be interested in attending as Sterling Tech's representative for the Sustainability Committee." Maya's eyes lit up. "Really? You want me to represent the company?" "You've become our expert on sustainable transportation," Alexander said with a smile. "Plus, you have personal experience with the challenges cyclists face in this city. Remember that rainy morning?" They both laughed, and Maya felt some of the professional distance between them dissolve. "I'd love to do that," Maya said. "I actually have some ideas about how the city could improve bike infrastructure." "I'd like to hear them," Alexander said. "Maybe we could discuss them over coffee sometime." "I know a good place." Maya smiled, recognizing the reference to their first meeting. "Are you asking me out, Mr. Sterling?" "I'm asking Maya Rodriguez, the brilliant developer who's making our city more sustainable, if she'd like to have coffee with Alex, the guy who's really impressed by her work," he replied with a grin. Maya pretended to consider this seriously.
"Well, when you put it that way, how can I say no?"
As they walked toward the street together, Maya reflected on how much her life had changed since that rainy morning 3 months ago. She had the job of her dreams, was making a real difference in her community, and had earned the respect of her colleagues through her own hard work. "You know," Alexander said as they reached the sidewalk, "I never did properly thank you for that morning." "Thank me? You're the one who helped me with the umbrella and bought me coffee. You reminded me why I started this company in the first place," Alexander said seriously. "Watching you protect your application,